Okay, so tomorrow I got a presentation with this, and I'm quite nervous. I don't like presenting stuff in front of people, but yeah, let's start the practice, I guess. Uh, my project this past 8 weeks was to make a GD extension in Godot for a grand strategy map editor, because as you can see in the bottom right, I am addicted to those. So why not make a plugin? So my plan for this was pretty much what you see on the slides. First few weeks, I can try to familiarize myself with Godot and try to have a small demo where you can click provinces from the province map. I can show you later or in the edit maybe, but you can click on the province map and then it finds the unique RGB color and then you get the data from the province and so on, which later on will facilitate like clicking on a province and that's a country or so on, you know. Then I would work on rendering, mainly the borders. Borders are quite tricky in this kind of games. As you can see on the left, they have some kind of gradient. There is a very popular paper from Intel on how Imperator Rome does it, and I used it extensively to learn how to render this kind of stuff. Basically, here they also have some kind of gradient towards the center, but I think that's some SDF magic. In the middle was the reference image I used at the start, really at the start, which was, I thought initially that this was very feasible to do. This is Victoria 3, and on the right it's U4 with some molds on top, but my data is basically on the right, on the the image on the right is basically what I can work with. Yeah. By week 7, I would also have to work on the editor functionality in Godot. So mostly, I think the hardest bit would be learning how to use Godot to make editor and inspector functionality, working with files, exporting and saving and so on. I would advise against using U4 files. I think it's finally time for me to buy U5 and then try to make projects with those files instead of U4. They have a very weird encoding for their files, so I don't necessarily recommend it, and Godot doesn't necessarily support it. So that's that. And then by week 8, I'd have to do a blog post with an overview over everything, or yeah, basically a blog post to conclude everything, more or less. Okay, so this is the most impressive stuff I've got. Might not be much, but on the top left you can see the inspector. You can reparse files, you can clear the query, you can search for provinces or countries' own provinces, and all it's read from the U4 data that I've used in Godot as testing mainly. I also attached a few renders of how my project looks. So on the top right, I guess, you can see I added a bit of noise similar to how Victoria 3 does it. So here you can see there are like some white spots sometimes. I've tried doing that. So that's how it looks. This is without province borders and without borders at all, actually. So it's just that. And on bottom left is the same thing but with province borders, just to show that you can change some shader parameters and everything updates and so on. Will be much more detailed when I make the actual blog post. Then on the bottom right is the final demo where you can modify the map by control clicking a country and then clicking provinces to add more provinces to that particular country. Well, Okay, I don't know what happened, but for future work, definitely vector-based borders. What you've seen earlier from my project is just normal borders made from compute shaders and yeah, that kind of stuff. But on the right, you can see there is I can link to the project if you want to. If you need to read to look at it, I can link it. But um, what they did is basically do SVG, so an SVG image with all the EU4 data, and they render all that stuff that you see on the right just in a SVG. It's very complicated what they do, but they use vector techniques from the same image I got. So it's possible, but I think it will take another 8 weeks just do vector-based borders. It depends, but I'll see. Then a globe-like shader. In the middle, you can see Sebastian Leg, geographical adventure. And I think a globe-like shader is a very easy feature to add, but it will also add a lot for immersion and how 3D the map would look. And then probably after having the adventures with the vector-based borders that I've mentioned, labels. So as you see on the left, Naples, Sicily, and so on. Those are spline-based borders, not borders, but labels for the countries. And I think those would be very interesting to implement. And that's the end of my presentation.